I am about to just get things tweeted out, get things started. Just going to do a quick double check because I am on a new PC. I just got started and I want to make sure that I'm coming in clear. Um, this is not going to be an easy topic tonight, y'all. I am dead serious. And hello, dear. I'm going to be as serious as possible. Is my voice coming in clear, sweetie? Hopefully, it's coming in clear. Tonight's topic, for those of you who have seen me put it out there, is going to be about the American blood tax. I will get to what that is in just a moment, but I would like to take a moment and thank y'all for putting up with the drama that I had with the computer. Not being able to do the cast last Friday was hard, but I really wasn't in the mind frame. We've had a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, not just getting this new system set up and stuff, but personal wise, we've had some illness hit us close to home. And I'm just going to say this: COVID's still a thing. Retail workers are hardly protected by retail employers. They put their lives at risk just to make sure that you have your items, that you are taken care of. And they are being infected by this horrible disease that is debilitating for those who are lucky to survive it. So if you've got to go out, wear your mask, social distance, order online and pick up your stuff. Stop risking people's lives with your selfishness, because this is hit way too close to home. We have way too many people that we love and care about now feeling the effects of this freaking disease, and it shouldn't be. So please, if you do not have your shot and you do not need to be out and about or in the store, don't do it. But to keep the topic on point tonight, because it's infuriating that we once again lost another life to police violence, another legalized lynching, or as I coined it this morning, and I'm probably not the first person to utilize this, but I call it the American blood tax. And what is it? It's the blood and the lives and the souls that my people have paid into this country for years now. Since you brought our ancestors over from a continent where we were living our best lives to forcefully implant us into this continent, and not just here in America, because some people forget that it's called the transatlantic slave trade. So all over the North and South America, we have the effects of colonization that planted us here. And we paid for that by working to damn near death, being raped and having our children taken from us and having them work to fucking death. Then they fought a war to keep us in this bondage. And when they lost that war and we had to be freed, they set up patrols. Those same patrols that used to catch my people when they were slaves were now supposedly upholding the law, but allowing us to be lynched if we voted, if we stepped out of line, if we whistled at a white person, allegedly. Every time we got a little bit of an inch, not only would they take the mob, but they would burn it down like they did in Tulsa and Rosewood. And every time we thought we made strides, whether it was with the civil rights, where my grandparents not only marched after coming back from World War II and being greeted with signs that said, whites only, colored entrance, to have dogs turned on them for marching and saying that we're human beings, to have hoses turned on them for daring to say, stop telling us where to sit on the bus. And you would think in the year 2021 that somehow it would get better. That being an American citizen, whether you are born or naturalized, would afford you the right to breathe, to live, to exist in your place without worrying about being shot, being lynched again. Because, like I said, being a lover of history, knowing that they used to lynch our people, hold picnics, take postcard pictures. You can literally still find postcards of lynched black bodies. The only thing that's changed now is that we see it in social media videos. And the people that lynch us still get off most of the time for it because they have a badge. And they have the right, because of that badge, to just snuff our lives out arbitrarily, talking about we're threats. But these same people can arrest a 17-year-old with an AR-15 who crossed state lines to kill people. They can arrest a movie theater shooter who took a dozen lives and was armed to the teeth. A young man who wanted to literally start a race war went into a church, prayed with the people in said church, and then murdered them because he believed that somehow that would just kick off another war. Because this is all I've seen with people that lean on the side of hate. They can't get their way because it's insensible, so they always choose violence. But what makes it worse is so many of these people have infiltrated law enforcement, whose sole duty is supposed to be to protect and serve, yet all they do is see people like me as targets, and it's tiring. And hello, Kilky Cat. Hello, Jones Murphy. Welcome to the chat. I am so freaking aggravated right now with the state of things in this country. When I looked at all the names that I'm going to read tonight, all the names of people who should still be here but aren't because they were legally lynched, not only does it enrage me, but it breaks my heart. And you add that to the fact that I am a black woman, a black mother surviving in America, who's so afraid that that blood tax is going to come knocking on my door, and I am sick to death of this. My son came to me last night. He's 16 years old. Most 16-year-olds have milestones. But being autistic, we celebrate those things a little bit differently than people. He didn't talk till he was about 7. He didn't say his first full sentences until he was 10. Every milestone he makes, we cherish. But with love, with the team that we have in the schools, we have broken through so many barriers with him. And somebody has suggested he would learn how to drive. Now, kiddo is fully functioning with his autism to a point where he was excited about the prospect. He's no longer interested at all. At all. And between this and the incident where my mom, when she was still staying with me, tried to send him across the street to look for a missing package, and he was like, I don't want to do that because I don't want to get shot. It is a brutal reality to me as a mom that my son at that age knows that he is not safe in his own fucking country. I wish I could get through this without tears. But I don't know how. It is mentally traumatizing to think that I could raise this child for so long, nurture, protect, and care for him, and send him out into this world and have some bigot who just happens to have a badge on take his life say it was an accident like this latest nonsense. Because being on the force for 20 something years, all of a sudden you can't tell a gun from a taser. But I'm supposed to entrust this country with my child's life. I can't do that. And he's old enough to understand now the things that he does not feel comfortable doing. And it makes me sad and it makes me sick as a mom. And I know I'm not the only one that's going through this right now, and it hurts. I feel so bad for the Wright family. As the Chauvin family are sitting through a trial where, as you can see on the Twitter thing that I've highlighted, I know defense attorneys have to launch the best defense they can, but to put an expert on the stand that has the nerve to say that a police officer is justified kneeling on the neck of a man for 9 minutes, it is beyond me. And then you add it to the fact that yesterday, yet again in Minnesota, these cops give this asinine statement that the officer who murdered Dante Wright deserved her due process. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Are you kidding me? You're telling me that this woman who had training as an officer, hopefully, because sometimes you got to wonder about what kind of training these people actually get, who couldn't tell a taser from a gun, who took the life of a person that they were pulling over for a routine traffic stop because allegedly it was an air freshener, and then allegedly he had warrants and all these freaking excuses to justify why they look at our skin as threats. This woman who had the audacity to say, I think I shot him, after she pulled her gun and fired, gets due process. And the last I checked, due process is supposed to be afforded to every American citizen under the law, but we don't get that. And it's why we have these protests that the news only seems to want to show when shit's burning. Y'all care more about a burning fucking Dollar Tree than the fact that since I can remember, our lives have been snuffed out by hatred. And it's being justified by people who say, oh, they should have just complied. How the fuck do you comply with somebody who automatically sees your skin, your stature, your build, your attitude as a threat to them? How do you comply with somebody who fucking is ready to kill you? There was a man in Miami who was a care worker for a man with autism who was shot with his hands up doing everything the police told him. There was another man who was on videotape doing everything the officers told him to do, and she still pumped bullets into him. And what about the black lives that are snuffed out in our own freaking homes, sitting in front of the TV and ice cream, not expecting the cop that lived right next to us or above us, I don't remember how their living situation was, walking in and killing him. The little girl sleep on the couch with her grandmother, who is the unfortunate victim of a botched police raid where her killer gets off. He lies on the stand, gets away with it. Another woman sleep with her boyfriend, minding their own business, asleep. Another freaking raid into her house. Her life's gone. And what makes it worse is the black AG from her state decided they didn't do anything wrong because her boyfriend shot at a bunch of people who just broke into their house in the middle of the night, guns are blazing. I can't make this shit make sense. All I know is that my people have been playing with our blood and our lives for 400 plus years. And it should be getting better, and it's not. And as a mom, I can't do this anymore. This wasn't supposed to be. A friend of mine who writes articles just said that he was putting out the story about Dante Wright because he didn't want it to be overshadowed by the next name. And his mother agreed because she felt like, why are we still going through this? You realize how traumatic it is that we know what we don't even have to finish the sentence anymore. The whole reason why I couldn't wait till Friday to get this out is because I'm afraid that by Friday there'll be 3, 4, maybe even more names to add to the freaking list of people who are dead now because of this. And then to add insult to injury, you got these people who are taking this opportunity instead of highlighting voices of people who have lost, and people who are scared, and people who are tired of this constant legalized lynching, to advocate for financial shit for themselves. To say, oh, BLM, but as long as you get me my student loans. Are you fucking shitting me right now? And yous are going to get read as well during this podcast because I'm sick and tired of people using BLM as a way to get followers, as a way to say, oh, I hear you, but I really don't care about you. I just need the clout. If you don't believe Black Lives Matter, you don't have any right using that in your bio. You don't have any right saying that at any part of your profile. Because if you're not out there making sure that we get police reform, that you are calling your Congress, both House and Senate, to pass the George Floyd Police Reform Act, then you are a performative, fake-ass person, and I don't have time for you. And if you're a politician, as I said this morning, who is taking your platform, squad members, to talk about student loan debt, when we just had a young man lose his life, fucking you are getting primary. I will make sure to use every resource I can to elevate anybody challenging your seat, because you are a waste of space. Your ideals that somehow free money and free college and this and that, economics is not going to bring us away from racism. It is too ingrained in this country. Consequences for racism is what is going to make change. When we start punishing these people for utilizing bigotry with a badge, when we start punishing people for calling false reports on Black people for just existing in our own space, that is when we will start seeing real change. And we know things are bad because literally last year on my birthday, my mom, as a extra FU for not wanting to take care of her anymore, threatened to call the police on me because she knows that given the chance, a bigot with a badge could come in because of my declared mental illness and my life. That is how sick and sadistic this is living in this country. So don't you tell me that you care about Black Lives Mattering if you aren't doing your best to focus on the reforms that we need. And exactly, Jones, I can't even imagine what it's like. And I'm a Black woman, but you're just living your life. You go out for a jog, you're minding your own business, and you have people stalking you who are supposed to just be keeping your neighborhood safe, looking for any excuse, any act of aggression to turn on you and turn your life inside out, if not completely snuff it out. That is ridiculous. It is complete, utter mental torture to do this to people. It's a human rights violation. And for people to act like this isn't something we should be talking about, or it would just go away if we just stop talking about racism, 400 plus years say that's bullshit. Every time Black America gets a little bit of strides, as I said earlier, Y'all don't just take it away from us. Y'all don't take a mile from the inch. Y'all make sure you take the inch, you burn it down, you raise Confederate statues on it, and then you let us know that no matter what we do, we are always going to be 3/5 in your head. How do you think it feels for every African American every time we turn on the news, look at social media, read a newspaper, for those that still actually get those, and see yet again another life snuffed out for a fucking parking thing? You're telling me that nobody on the force is trained to just let somebody who you obviously know who they are, you know where they live, you have all this information to fucking give them a warrant, but you're gonna have to shoot them because they ran from you? Not, I shot because he drew a weapon and was coming at me. No, I shot him as he was fleeing because I don't know about you, but seeing a hostile officer engaging me, I don't want to stick around. Fight or flight is a normal reaction. Flight to survive is a black reaction. And I don't know a black person alive that's going to stick around when there's somebody that aggressive, when we have seen, like, I literally have 3 pages here of names. And this is only going from 2009 to 2021. And that is the saddest part about that. And it's not everybody. I know that for a fact. But it's enough. One death would be enough. But this is fucking ridiculous. So right now, because I don't want to end the show with this, because I really want to get to what we need to do to really start tackling this, I am going to start reading the names of the lives lost to legalize police lynchings. Starting in 2009 to 2011, we have Oscar Grant, Aiyana Jones, who is 7 years old. She is the young lady that I talked about being on the couch with her grandmother. The cop that did it lied on the stand, got off. He is still free man. She lost her life at 7 years old. Mark Dugan, Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., Anthony Lamar Smith. From 2012 to 2013, Ramarley Graham, Rika Boyd. Now they have both Trayvon Martin and Jordan Davis listed here. Both of these young men were lost to hate, but they were not lost to police gun violence. Trayvon Martin was killed by a wannabe vigilante, while Jordan Davis, whose mother is Lucy McBath, Georgia senator, he was lost to a white man who is convicted and staying in jail for life. He was murdered in his car in Florida. So this list, like I said, it's not completely 100% accurate. I want to read the names directly of Black American citizens who did not get their due process. Timothy Russell and Melissa Williams. Larry Jackson Jr., Jonathan Farrell, Renisha McBride, Dontre Hamilton, Eric Garner, John Crawford III, Michael Brown, Ezell Ford, Laquan McDonald, Akai Gurley, Tamir Rice. God, that one broke me. That baby was just playing in the park. The person who called said it was a toy gun. The asshole who shot him didn't even give him a chance. And they had the nerve to keep applying for jobs in law enforcement. He shouldn't have been hired in the first place. That dude couldn't even pass a psychological screening. He was there and in less than 12 seconds ended the life of a 12-year-old boy playing in the park with a toy gun. Antonio Martin, Jermaine Reed, Natasha McKenna, Charlie Lindu Cunanan, Tony Robinson, Anthony Hill, Megan Hockaday, Eric Harris, Walter Scott, Freddie Gray, another one that was just, how do you die in the back of a police van? William Chapman, Jonathan Sanders, Sandra Bland. I still believe that photo of hers was taken after they killed her. Samuel Du Bois, Mansour Bal Bay, Jeremy McDowell, Corey Jones, Jamar Clark, Mario Wood, Greg Gunn, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, which all these fuckers who talk about stand your ground and your First Amendment rights, he was a legal gun owner. He let them know he legally owned the gun in his car, and he was shot and killed in front of his girlfriend and their kid. Joseph Mann, Adam Traore, Abderrahman Abdi, Paul O'Neill, Corian Gaines, Jamarion Robertson, Savili Smith, Elijah Dowie, Terrence Crutcher, who I talked about, and that woman who killed him as he did what she said, hands up. She's still working as a cop. She just traded counties. Keith Lamont Scott, Alfred Olengo, Deborah Donna, Jacques Clemens, Jordan Edwards. Jordan Edwards, the saddest part was he was hanging out with his brothers. He went to a pool party. Somebody called the cops because the pool party got rowdy. Jordan was in the back of, not even, he was in the passenger seat of his brother's car. They were driving away, and the cops fired into the car. 16-year-old life snuffed out. Edson DaCosta, Rashawn Charles, Patrick Harmon, Anthony Weber, Stephon Clark, Marcus Davis Peters, Antoine Rose Jr., Marquise McLaughlin, Bothern Jean, who was in his own house watching TV, eating ice cream, and his murderer got 10 years and a hug from the judge. Jamel Robertson, E.J. Bradford Jr., George Robinson, Willie McCoy, Javier Ambler, Pamela Turner, Elijah McCain, which he was just trying to go home. The young man had autism. And not only did these cops detain him, but injected him with a substance that they shouldn't have and let him die. And then the people involved were caught mocking him. They're not in jail. Atiana Jefferson, which terrifies me. She was at home with her nephew, late night, babysitting, playing a video game with him, minding her own black business. Her door was ajar, and the neighbor called the police thinking, I don't want to go over there and cause trouble, but something might be wrong. The cop that responded didn't do a wellness check, which was what he was called for. He shot into her window and murdered her. Alvin Cole, Armand Aubrey, who, once again, this is not a full list, of those who were lynched by police. Auburn Albright, as tragic as his death was chased by two racist-ass white men whose court case is still pending. Manuel Ellis, Breonna Taylor, who was just laying in her bed, an EMT, somebody who utilized all her energy to save lives, was snuffed out by a no-knock raid. Daniel Prude, and Tyree King's name is not on this list, and I don't want his name to be forgotten because he was a 13-year-old child who was murdered, who ran from the cops because he had a toy gun on him and he knew. And they didn't even give him a chance. So Tyree King, I did not forget about your name. Nina Pop, George Floyd, who right now his trial is going on. We watched in horror as his life was snuffed out. 9 minutes, 29 seconds of this smirking, hands in his pocket murderer taking his life. And yet he's allowed a trial to defend his rights. Deion Johnson, Tony McDade, Regis Paquette, James Sherlock, David McCarthy, Carlos Carson, Rashard Brooks, Julian Edward Roosevelt Lewis, Dijon Kizzee, Marcellus Stinnett, Walter Wallace, Andre Hill, Dallard Id, Marvin Scott, and Dante Wright. All of these names from the years 2009 to 2021 of American citizens who should still be here. Their due process wasn't honored. Their right to exist as American citizens weren't respected. Their lives snuffed out by the people who said they were going to protect and serve. And all they did was serve as judge, jury, and executioner. We have people who are trained to be cosmeticians. We have people who are trained to clip dogs that show more empathy and care for life than the people who are supposed to protect and serve. And if you are on the force and you want to say not me or not all, or you don't understand how stressful this job is, if the stress has gotten you to the point where you can't see a human being as a human, when you see a person's skin tone as a target, when you automatically assume the worst instead of bringing your best, you do not belong on the police force. And if you want to talk about how stressful it is to be a cop, I get it. I've had police officers in my family. I know that seeing crime and seeing horrific things is not easy. But if you let that twist you into assuming the worst about every fellow human being, then you should not be in that field of work. It is just that simple. And a person who is not able to pass a psychological exam, and I am saying this as somebody with mental health issues, should not be able to just cross over to another county and get picked up by that police force. Why are we not screening? Why are we not listing these people? When they have multiple violations, they should not be on the beat, especially in the neighborhood where they are just going to be hostile. Eric Gardner's murderer had several violations. And let's also link the fact that many of these men and women have altercations, whether it's assault or domestic violence issues, that just get swept under the rug. So for anybody who wants to come at me about, oh, not all, or Blue Lives Matter, for every good cop you want to throw up at me, there are at least 10 bad ones right now beating up protesters who are simply asking for our lives to matter, if not worse. We have people who can't tell what apartment they live in and their first thought is to grab a gun. We have a woman that chased a man supposedly because of an air freshener who can't tell a gun from a taser. We have another officer who used a chokehold that was illegal because somebody was selling loose cigarettes. Come on. And then you've got these people who talk about compliance. These people will never profile. They never have to worry about an officer looking at them funny or judging them automatically when they're just minding their own business. You always have that energy to tell people like me to comply, but you will kick and scream at an officer if they dare look at you, even when you're cutting up. How many videos have we all seen online of these crazed ass white ladies yelling because they didn't want to wear a mask? And they go into a racist, crazy ass tirade until the police come. And then all of a sudden, what are you doing this to me for? They get taken in. They're angry. They're volatile. I would feel threatened around them, but they're not perceived threats. It is ridiculous. And like I said, I think about this as a black woman. I think about this as an American. I think about this as a mom who my son is almost 6 foot with the mind of a literal 10-year-old. I love my child. I believe he's brilliant when it comes to science. He loves music. He loves art. But he is developing at a slower pace due to being on the spectrum. And while normally I'd be okay with that, knowing that if anything happened to me, he'd be alone in this world, in a country where he doesn't react to stimulus and being yelled at like regular people. He doesn't know how. His brain freezes when he gets into trouble in any way, shape, or form. He doesn't express emotions like what they claim is normal. So I can't even imagine a scenario where somebody is angrily yelling at him with a gun in his face because he's not compliant to whatever asinine thing they want him to do. And if you haven't had that nightmare over and over again the last few years, congratulations, you're not a black parent. Because many of us have that nightmare. Many of us live with that anxiety of just going out and doing regular things with our families now. Because you never know. And it shouldn't be like that. And we have the ability to push legislation that not only pushes for police reform that takes their budget away from them getting military grade gear and tanks and shit that they shouldn't need anyway because we're not in a fucking war zone. And you invest in social workers who should be the ones going out on calls for mental health, who should be the ones to help de-escalate a situation. You have more officers who are better trained in how to handle the communities that they're in and hiring within those communities so that we don't have outsiders who already have preconceived notion of said neighborhood coming in and acting hostile. The fact of the matter is, when I lived in New York, it was nothing to hear. Even people in my family that served, calling people animals. And when you have that mindset, it's really easy for you to pull a gun on somebody and end their lives. When you stop seeing human beings as humans, it's really easy for you to make the jump to their lives not mattering. And that is why we need full-on reform. And I know some people are like, well, why reform? Why not just abolish the whole system? Do you understand that crime happens? Do you understand that many black people have been victims of crime too? You do not know the hell of knowing that your rights have been violated, whether it's through sexual assault, through physical violence, through robbery, losing a family member to violence, and knowing that the people who are supposed to come and help you can also end your life legally too. It is hell right now for black people in America, for brown people in America, but especially for black people. And how dare you go, well, we should just abolish it all. Why do we need the prison system? Because people still commit crimes. And I'm not asking for an end to the judicial system. I'm asking for justice to be for everyone. For every American citizen to have due process and not be shot and left bleeding out on the streets for supposedly stealing Lucy's, like Mike Brown, or just looking funny in his own yard holding a phone. It is beyond ridiculous how many times we have to have these conversations. It is beyond ridiculous how many tears have to be shed, how many moms have to join the Mothers of Movement. It shouldn't be a club that anybody is a part of, but so many of them join every damn day because we are losing our sons and our daughters to legalize lynching, to all kinds of hateful violence, but mostly to legalize lynching. And you will not hear me call it anything but. Because as long as these people get off, every freaking time they get away with killing us and lying or get in a court trial where their defense attorneys could say they were justified, that is us being lynched over and over and over again. The only difference is they ain't taking pictures of us hanging from trees right now. They're taking pictures of our sons and our daughters laying cold and dead, riddled with bullets from people who can't de-escalate a situation, even though that's a fucking core tenet of their job. I'm just so sick and tired of being this upset over something that didn't have to get this far. It didn't have to be like this. We have the ability to go in, restructure this whole damn system, rebudget so that there is less money in the hands of any police union that wants to push, oh, we definitely have to militarize. People are getting guns. We have to militarize. Why? If you can't arrest an unarmed black person but can take in an armed to the teeth mass shooter and you need a tank for protesters, that ain't making sense. And I don't deal with shit that don't make sense. The stuff that's not logical. It is not logical to me to have somebody tell me they need a tank to deal with protesters. And they need all these military grade, bulletproof vests and all this stuff for patrolling regular towns that just happen to have black people in it. But a mass freaking shooter can shoot up a grocery store, can shoot up a movie theater, can shoot up concerts, and be taken in a fucking live. I am just so aggravated at this point with the excuses people make when it comes to my life, when it comes to other black lives in this country. And there is no excuse why police reform, why that George Floyd Policing Reform Act shouldn't be passed immediately. We have the House, we have the Senate, and we have the White House. And if you are watching this tonight, I don't care if you're in a red state, I don't care if you're in a blue state, call your reps. Let them know that by no excuse can they miss out on voting yes on this. We need actual legislation, not grandstanding, not people talking about slogans. We need actual on the books policies because that is the only way we can take it to each one of these law enforcement agencies, whether they are state or county. They need a federal law that holds them to the fire when they do like this. Because right now, accountability doesn't happen. It doesn't happen often, and it doesn't happen enough for them to take this seriously. Why do you think Derek Chauvin was able to kneel on a man's neck for 9 minutes, 29 seconds? He knew he was being filmed. He didn't care. He knows he's sitting in trial right now that his attorney has the ability to convince at least one juror that he was in his justified right to commit murder, and he could get off. He could have a mistrial. It's sick. And we need legislation that not only gives harsh punishment for murderers who just happen to be cops, but to make sure that we stop training these murderers how to efficiently end our lives. Because it's obvious that's all they're trained to do at this point. They're not even trained to know the difference between a gun and a taser. But they sure as hell know how to end our lives. So it's about time we got some legislation on the books that completely revamps, looks at a person's history. Do they have ties to hate crimes? Do they have ties to white nationalist groups? Because those motherfuckers are all in law enforcement. They're in our military too, but that's a whole nother fish to fry. But the fact is, we need to screen people way better than we do for them to become law enforcement. We also need a registry. If a cop has committed an act of violence, whether it's domestic, whether it is an act of murder, they need to be listed. And they don't need to be getting hired by any other official law enforcement agency. They shouldn't even be called to consult. Their asses should be in jail. But we register people for their religious beliefs. We've registered people because they looked a certain way. We can make a registry whenever somebody supposedly looks like or has a tie to a gang or terrorist, or dare say our lives need to matter. But you're telling me we can't form an actual registry of people who have abused their power in law enforcement? That's some bullshit. And I'm sick of it. It's really funny how we are selective on what we will list as acts of terrorism when domestic terrorism goes on in this country constantly. And it's really fucking shady how you can put my people on a watch list and say, we're doing acts of terror for marching and saying, stop killing us. But these people who have literally snuffed out the lives and don't have an age restriction, babies as young as 7 years old dying to this bullshit and getting away with it. How much more must we take before you start taking this seriously? And like I said earlier in this broadcast, if you have BLM in your profile on any social media, if you have ever even said it for clout, worn the shirt, talking about, oh, I march for the gram. If you have all that energy, learn your congressman and your state representative's number, shoot them an email if you don't do phone calls. You can also text. ResistBot is a thing. Let them know that we want the George Floyd Police Reform Act passed. It is unacceptable for you to use Black Lives Matter for clout and not actually believe in Black Lives Mattering. It is not okay for you to push for whatever nonsense you want, be it free college or student loan reforms, when we are literally out here dying to systemic racism. And for those of you who want solidarity, like I talked about 2 weeks ago in my cast, if you want us to stand with you, you really need to stand with us on this, because police violence won't just affect us. And it doesn't just affect us. And there are way too many of you, non-black POC, who think it's cutesy to call the cops on us as well. And that's not okay. You can't say, oh, can't we get along when a hate crime happens to you? But then you turn around when, once again, we're lost a life to police violence and like, well, what can you do? It happens. Or then even worse, ignore your relatives and your friends who think it's cutesy to call the cops or threaten to call the cops on a black or brown person. It's not okay. Exactly. Confront the people in their lives who support racist police, especially the people who like that Blue Lives Matter bullshit. The ones that you see on Facebook that you're like, I don't really want to argue with them. There's no getting through to them. No. Because you have a lot of energy for black people on social media. Some of you go out of your way to jump into our mentions talking about, well, I didn't understand. I need you to teach me. I don't know. And you have all that energy to talk about what is and what isn't racist. And who the heck is texting me right now? Anyhow, you just have all that energy to talk about what you don't know, talk about what is and what isn't racism, but none of that energy to confront the people in your life that push that nonsense. And it's just like, you know what? I'm going to need you to take all that energy that you normally have for people that look like me, when you want to not all or not me, and you want to pat on your back because you're doing the bare minimum of not being a bigot, and talk to your family. Even if they don't want to hear it, say your piece and move on, but don't keep giving them an acceptable out. Because for every time you refuse to confront their hatred, their bigotry, their acceptance of legalized lynching, another mother like me is burying a child. Another wife is saying goodbye to her husband. Another kid is going without their parent. Some of you are talking about student loans. And as I said in my video earlier this morning, how the fuck are you going to talk to me about student loans when we're shopping for coffins over caps and gowns? We are burying our kids instead of seeing them in higher learning. I would love to have the luxury of being, oh, I need to worry. And I literally have to worry in 3 years, hopefully, knock on wood, that my kid will be going to college because he wants to be a marine biologist. But I am more fearful that I won't be able to keep him alive long enough to do that. And it shouldn't be this way. So I'm dead serious. I was not joking. Those of you who are currently in our Congress, if you decide to be cutesy and try to court those who don't vote anyway with your little slogans about student loans, when we literally have lives being snuffed out, you better hope to God that you don't have an opponent that's worth me talking them up, donating any extra funds I have. And I don't have much, but I will donate them to whoever primaries and runs against you. Because I am dead serious. This is not the time to be an opportunist. This is not the time to be that guy who uses black trauma over and over again to get a bunch of followers and fleece them out of donations that should have been going to the family, aka Martin Luther Scheme, aka you know who I'm talking about. This is not the time to be amplifying the far left whiners who are now complaining that they're losing followers left and right because nobody wants to hear from people who don't vote and who lose all the time. It's not a conspiracy. Nobody likes you. Nobody needs to be amplifying any of their bullshit. We need to keep focused on what's important while we have the majority of the House and the Senate and a president and vice president that actually gives a crap about this country. We need actual reform. And if you are feeling me on this tonight, do not waste time arguing with people online. All that energy you use to argue with people online that are going to try you on this, use it to call. Use it to write those people who represent you in Congress. Because they need to know we're all serious about this. I will be on the phone with Senator Stabnow's office. I will be calling every single representative that I can to make sure that this state fucking does what it needs to do to make sure police violence stops. Because this is unacceptable. It's unacceptable that we have made 3 fucking pages of names. And like I said, that list was not even complete. And it wasn't 100% accurate because it had names on it of people who did die to racism. But I really wanted to just read the names of people who died of police violence. As you can see in these pictures, these beautiful people who should be here. Children, babies, taken. I don't care where you are in this country, what your lifestyle is, what walk of life you come from. If you have ever loved anyone in your entire life, and all you want to do is see them grow and protect them, and know that no matter what you do, there's a damn good chance that even sitting in your house, minding your own business, they could be taken from you, or you could die from that. How do you expect people to live? How do you expect us to function? It is complete mental torture to expect people to deal with this. And it is unacceptable in the year 2021 that we are still asking to be treated like human beings. So I'm telling you right now, don't waste my time. Don't tell me you hear me. And don't say that you care. If you ain't reaching out to your representatives, make sure that this act is passed and that your city and state officials, your county and local officials are doing everything they can towards police reform. Because it starts and it ends with us. We can't keep expecting other people to do this. It's not going to happen that way. So if you give a crap about what I'm saying tonight, you got to step it up. You have to make the calls. You have to keep the pressure on. Because too many mothers are grieving tonight. Too many people aren't coming home. Too many blood has been given to this blood tax. And I'm sick and tired of seeing my people pay it. I'm going to get ready to wrap this up. I thank you all for coming in on this special Bonnet Chronicles. I will be here on Friday, hopefully not with any bad news. Like I said, I haven't been watching this trial directly because it's hard. It's exhausting to think that Derek Chauvin is afforded the due process that he did not give George Floyd. So I did not want to sit and watch that trial. But I'm just hoping that by Friday, I can at least say that this country got it right. Even though there's a cynical side of me saying that it's going to be another Rodney King. Even worse. Because if he's not convicted, this country is basically telling us that we could be murdered in full view of not just this country, but the whole world, and our killers get away with it. That is what a non-conviction or mistrial would mean to us right now. So I am praying by Friday. I'd rather have no news at this point, but I am praying by Friday I'm not saying those words. And I really hope that you all take the time seriously this week to reach out to your Congress. Once again, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to go calm down. I thank you for joining. Thank you for joining the chat, Jones. Thank you again, Axiom and Kilky Cat. Like I said, this was a serious topic, so I really appreciate you being in the chat. I didn't really interact as much today because I was just so upset by all of this. I don't think there's anybody with a heart that wouldn't be upset by this. And I just need people to take this seriously. But I will be back on Friday with a whole new topic. Hopefully it will be less heavy, but you never know. This is America. I'm going to sign off, and I will see you all next week. I hope you like the new studio lineup. You know, I figured that I would get it together, and I like it so far. I got a chair and everything, but like I said, I'm going to wrap this up, and I will see you all online, especially on social media. Good night.